Hey everyone, and a huge welcome back to all you focused learners out there. Today, we are bringing you a brand new deep dive explainer into something that is probably sitting in your pantry right this second: brown sugar. But we aren't just talking about baking cookies today. Oh no, we are going to look at the fascinating, verifiable food science and chemistry behind this absolute kitchen staple. By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand exactly how it works, how to properly store it, and how to swap it out like a pro, all backed up by the actual data. Let's get into it. To kick things off, let's tackle the million-dollar question right out of the gate. Is brown sugar actually healthier than white sugar? You know, because it has that word brown in it, and it's got that slightly rustic, unrefined look, there is this massive assumption out there that it carries some sort of health halo. People honestly think they are making a significantly better dietary choice when they sprinkle this over their morning oatmeal instead of just using standard white sugar. But is that actually true? Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the sweet nutritional illusion. Second, meet the sugar family. Third, the science of baking. Fourth, smart substitutions and swaps. And finally, stop the sugar bricks. Starting right off with section 1, the sweet nutritional illusion. Let's shatter that health halo. Let's be real for a second. From a purely biological standpoint, brown sugar is essentially just white sugar wearing a molasses tan. Seriously, white sugar comes in at 385 calories per 100 grams, while brown sugar sits at 380 calories for that exact same amount. Nutritionally speaking, they are practically identical. Both of them are going to deliver almost the exact same amount of empty calories, and your body is going to rapidly break both of them down into glucose for energy. So if your goal is to cut calories or manage your blood sugar, switching from white to brown, it simply doesn't move the needle at all. Now, you might be thinking, well, hold on, brown sugar has minerals in it that white sugar doesn't. And hey, that is technically true, but look at this number, 0.015 milligrams. That is the exact amount of iron you get in a whole tablespoon of brown sugar. To get even 10% of your daily recommended value of iron from brown sugar, you would literally have to eat 10 full servings, which is about 1,000 grams of this stuff. So that tiny fraction of a milligram, it's completely meaningless to human metabolism. And if you're holding out hope for antioxidants, consider this staggering comparison. You would need to consume 5 whole cups of partially refined turbinado sugar just to equal the antioxidants found in 2/3 of a cup of blueberries. 5 cups! So let's officially crush the myth right here and now. The trace minerals and antioxidants present in the molasses of brown sugar do not provide any real dietary benefit. It's added sugar, plain and simple, and we should treat it as such.
Moving right along to section 2. Meet the sugar family. We're looking at the molasses spectrum.
So if nutrition isn't the big differentiator between these sugars, what actually is? Well, the answer comes down to one incredible variable: molasses. What is molasses? It's a thick, dark brown syrup that's naturally present in the sugarcane plant. When manufacturers process sugarcane, they extract the sugar juice, and then they separate the pure sugar crystals from this dark molasses. But here is the real secret. Molasses isn't just there for color. It contains reducing sugars like glucose and fructose, organic acids, and minerals. Those specific components are what separate refined white sugar, which has had literally all of its molasses stripped away, from the rest of the pack. That molasses is what drives all the functional differences we see in our kitchens. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the molasses percentage dictates everything. Did you know commercial brown sugar is actually just purified white sugar with that molasses added right back in? It's true. Turbinado, which is often sold as raw sugar, retains less than 3.5% of its original molasses. Standard light brown sugar is carefully mixed to hit exactly 3.5% molasses, which gives it that familiar moisture and structure we all know. And then you've got muscovado. That one holds on to 8 to 10% molasses, making it incredibly sticky with a super robust, intense flavor. That one little percentage dictates the moisture, texture, and flavor intensity across the whole board. All right, let's get to the fun part. Section 3, the science of baking. Time for some chemistry in the kitchen. So, how does molasses actually impact our food? Well, when sugar hits the intense heat of an oven, it goes through a complex browning and flavor development process called the Maillard reaction. Pure white sugar requires a temperature of 315 degrees Fahrenheit to trigger this reaction. But because of the specific reducing sugars in molasses, brown sugar kicks off that reaction at just 292 degrees. That is a 23-degree difference. This is exactly why your gingerbread sets and caramelizes much faster in the oven, and why those brown sugar glazes you put on meat can burn so easily if you aren't paying close attention to your roasting temps. But wait, the chemistry goes even deeper. Molasses is actually slightly acidic. It sits at a pH of about 5.2 to 5.6. Baking soda, on the other hand, is alkaline. So when you substitute brown sugar for white sugar in a recipe like chocolate chip cookies, that acid reacts with the baking soda incredibly fast. This triggers an earlier release of carbon dioxide gas before the gluten in the dough even has a chance to set up. The result? Your cookies are going to spread out 28% more and become significantly thinner. If you want to keep them thick and chewy, you absolutely must remember to reduce your baking soda by a quarter teaspoon for every cup of brown sugar you substitute. Now, a quick heads up on your kitchen gear, because there are some surprising equipment warnings you need to know about. Since molasses is mildly acidic and corrosive, it can actually accelerate pitting if you leave it sitting in aluminum mixing bowls. Also, if you bake molasses residues onto nonstick pans at temperatures over 425 degrees, it degrades that nonstick coating super fast. And finally, because of its high moisture content, it absolutely clings to dry measuring cups. It completely throws off your recipe ratios because you can get wildly different amounts of sugar depending on how hard you pack that cup. Do yourself a favor, always use a digital kitchen scale for brown sugar to make sure you're accurate. Which brings us to section 4, smart substitutions and swaps. Let's master the art of the swap. Ever been right in the middle of a recipe and realized you're totally out of brown sugar? We've all been there. Or maybe you're just looking to adjust the glycemic impact of your baking. Well, here is a great cheat sheet for your kitchen. Maple syrup is fantastic, but it's a liquid, so you absolutely must reduce the other wet ingredients in your batter, or your recipe is going to be a soggy mess. Honey is another great option. It's sweeter than sugar and actually has a slightly lower glycemic index, so you don't need to use quite as much of it. Date sugar is brilliant because it's made from whole dried dates, meaning it adds fiber and retains this wonderful moisture. And hey, you can even use mashed fruits like bananas or applesauce to give it natural sweetness. Just keep an eye on how much liquid you're adding. But honestly, here is my absolute favorite hack. If you have white sugar and a jar of molasses sitting in your pantry, you never actually need to buy brown sugar again. You can literally just make it yourself. Just dump 1 cup of white sugar right into your stand mixer. Add 1 tablespoon of molasses if you want light brown sugar, or 2 tablespoons if you want it dark. Turn the mixer on low for about 2 minutes until it's completely uniform. And that's it. It is a totally foolproof, science-backed hack that perfectly replicates the massive commercial manufacturing process right on your own kitchen counter. Finally, section 5, stop the sugar bricks. We are talking about the physics of storage. Why on earth does a brand new, beautifully soft bag of brown sugar turn into a literal rock the second you leave it in your pantry? Let's start by killing off a massive internet myth. You've probably heard that old trick where you put a slice of bread or an apple wedge into your hardened sugar to soften it up, right? Do not do this. Seriously, bread and apples have incredibly high moisture contents. When you trap them in a container, the moisture migrates wildly. USDA-validated trials actually proved that adding bread to these containers resulted in 3 times higher mold growth by day 5. You aren't fixing your sugar, you're basically creating a breeding ground for dangerous mold. Here's the real physics behind what's going on. It all comes down to water activity. Pure white sugar has a water activity below 0.20. It is so bone dry that bacteria and mold simply cannot survive in it. It's microbiologically stable basically forever. But brown sugar, because it has that molasses, sits at a water activity of about 0.60. It wants to exist in an environment of about 65 to 70% humidity. When the dry winter air in your house drops below that, the sugar rapidly loses its moisture to the air. As that water evaporates, the molasses viscosity increases exponentially. It effectively acts like glue, binding the sugar crystals together into a rigid, rock-hard brick. So how do we fix the humidity without growing a science experiment in our pantry? The scientifically proven answer is so simple: a terracotta sugar saver. When you soak a porous terracotta disc in water and drop it into an airtight container with your sugar, it creates this perfect, completely stable 68% relative humidity microclimate. In rigorous testing, brown sugar kept with a terracotta disc remained soft and perfectly scoopable for 92 days. Compare that to just 17 days when it's left all alone in a standard plastic bag. But hey, let's say you're baking right this second, and you just pulled a sugar brick out of the cupboard. Don't panic. Here is your 90-second rescue plan. Put the hardened sugar into a microwave-safe bowl. Cover it with a damp, but not dripping wet, paper towel. And do not seal it tightly, we want it to breathe.
Microwave it at 50% power in 20-second bursts. The microwave heats the moisture inside the paper towel, which creates steam. That steam rapidly penetrates the crystal network, rehydrating the molasses without accidentally cooking it. In about a minute and a half, your sugar is going to be completely soft again and ready to use.
Well, we've unpacked the nutritional truths, the heat-sensitive baking chemistry, the perfect swaps, and the physics of proper storage. Now that you know the actual science driving this everyday pantry staple, will you ever look at a hardened sugar break the same way? The kitchen isn't just a place to blindly follow recipes. It's a fascinating laboratory, and a little bit of knowledge empowers you to cook so much smarter. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, Focused Learners. Stay curious, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.